My name is Irene Good. I am 63 years old and I have worked at the same grocery store for 11 years. That is not something most people would say with pride. But I do, because that job, those early mornings, that routine, all of it led to the one moment that changed everything. And it started with something as simple as a muffin. Let me back up. My husband passed in the winter of 2019, a heart attack, quick and without warning. We had been married 31 years. I knew how he took his coffee, which side of the bed he preferred, the exact sound of his breathing when he was asleep versus when he was only pretending. And then one Tuesday morning, he was gone, and the house became the loudest place I had ever been in my life. My daughter Felicia lives in Portland now. She flew out for the funeral and stayed 2 weeks. She kept asking me to move with her, or at least move closer. I told her I would think about it. I said that every time she asked. I never did move. I stayed in the house. Our house, in Maplewood, New Jersey. I went back to work at Hartfield's Market 6 weeks after the funeral. My manager, a kind man named Roderick, told me to take as much time as I needed. But I needed to work. I needed somewhere to be at 5:15 in the morning where there were lights on and a task in front of me and other human beings moving around in the same space. Grief is a strange thing. It does not just hurt, it makes you afraid of stillness. So I went back. My shift started at 6. I would leave the house at 5:30, walk the 4 blocks to the bus stop on Cedar Lane, and take the 542 toward downtown. Every morning, same bus, same route, same tired faces. And every morning, without fail, a man named Owen was already on that bus when I got on. I noticed him first because of his jacket. It was a brown canvas jacket with a faded patch on the left shoulder. One of those patches that look like it used to mean something, a logo maybe, worn down to almost nothing. He was around my age, maybe a few years younger. He sat in the same seat every morning, 3rd row from the front, window side, and he stared out at the street the way people do when they are not really seeing anything. He looked like a man carrying something heavy. I know that look. I wore it myself for a long time. The first time we spoke was an accident. I had bought a cranberry orange muffin from Hartfield's the evening before. We got a discount on day-old bakery items, and I had brought it for breakfast on the bus. But my stomach was unsettled that morning, the way it sometimes gets when the grief comes back quietly in the night and sits on your chest until dawn. I could not eat, and this man, Owen, was sitting right across from me after we had both transferred to the Express at Broad Street, and his stomach made the loudest noise I had ever heard from a stranger. He looked embarrassed. I almost laughed. Instead, I held out the muffin. "I cannot eat it today," I said. "You would be doing me a favor." He looked at it for a moment like he was trying to decide if it was real. Then he took it. He said thank you very quietly, and he ate the whole thing in 3 bites. And I could tell it was not his first time being hungry in the morning. After that, I started bringing 2. I want to be clear about something. I was not trying to be anyone's savior. I was not doing it to feel good about myself. I had an extra muffin, and he was there. And it cost me about 65 cents more than I was already spending. That was all it was. Some mornings we talked. Some mornings we didn't. I learned that his name was Owen, that he had worked in warehouse logistics for most of his adult life, and that he had been laid off from his last job 14 months earlier. He was picking up odd jobs, day labor, moving help, handyman work, but nothing steady. He rode the bus all the way downtown to check in at a labor placement office 3 times a week. I told him my name. I told him I worked at Hartfield's. I told him my husband had passed and that some mornings the quiet in the house was the hardest thing. He nodded at that the way people do when they have known the same quiet themselves. We were not friends exactly. We were 2 people who shared a short stretch of morning before the day pulled us in different directions. But it was something. In that season of my life, it was more than I expected from the world. This went on for about 5 months. Then, on a Thursday morning in late October, Owen was not on the bus. I told myself it was nothing. People missed buses. Schedules changed. I ate both muffins and felt vaguely foolish and got on with my shift. He was not there Friday either, or the following Monday. By Wednesday of the next week, I had mostly accepted that our bus stop acquaintance had simply run its course. Maybe he found steady work with different hours. Maybe he moved. I hoped he was all right, the way you hope for people you cannot actually reach. On Thursday, he was there. But something was different. He did not sit in his usual seat. He got on one stop after me. I had never seen him do that before, and he walked straight to where I was sitting, which he had never done either. He sat down beside me, not across from me. And he did not say good morning. He said, Mrs. Good. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you react. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Something in his voice was different. Controlled in the way that things are controlled when the person speaking is working hard to stay calm. All right, I said. He said he had been on a job last week, hauling furniture for a family moving out of an apartment on my block. He said he had been there 2 separate days, Thursday and Friday, doing the heavy carry work while others did the packing. And he said that on both days he noticed a man watching my house, not passing by, not walking a dog, watching, standing near the oak tree at the corner of my front yard for long stretches of time. Owen said the man would check his phone, then look at the house, then check his phone again. On the second day, he saw the man try the side gate, the wooden one that leads to my backyard, and then walk away when another car came down the street. He came back, Owen said. Both days he came back. I did not say anything for a moment. I was looking at my hands in my lap. Did you see his face? I asked. Yes. Would you recognize him? I already did, he said. I have seen him before. He parks on your street sometimes. Dark blue sedan, New Jersey plates. He sits in the car. My stomach dropped all the way to the floor. I knew exactly who he was describing. His name was Gerald Foss. He lived 2 streets over, on Birchwood. I had known him by sight for years, the way you know your neighbors by sight without ever really knowing them. He had waved at me from his driveway a handful of times. Once, after my husband passed, he had come to the door with a store-bought casserole and an expression I could not quite read. I thanked him, and he lingered longer than felt comfortable, and I found reasons to end the visit. I did not know then what I know now, but my body knew something was wrong before my mind did. I had stopped answering the door when I saw his car on the street. I had just never said it out loud to anyone. I told Owen. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Do you have somewhere you can stay tonight? A family member? A friend? I thought of Felicia in Portland. I thought of my neighbor Ruth Ann, 3 doors down, who had a spare bedroom and a deadbolt on every door and would not ask too many questions. Yes, I said. Then don't go home alone tonight, Owen said. Owen said, and I think you should call the non-emergency police line today, not 911. Just report what I saw. Give them his name and the description of the car. Let them have it on record. I want to tell you that I was calm and clear-headed in that moment. I was not. My hands were shaking by the time we reached my stop. But I thanked Owen, and I got off the bus, and I stood on the sidewalk outside Hartfield's in the thin October cold, and I pulled out my phone. I called Felicia first. She answered on the second ring, and I kept my voice steady and told her what Owen had told me. She was not steady. She was out of her chair in seconds, talking about flights, talking about calling someone, talking fast the way she does when she is frightened. I told her to slow down. I told her I was safe right now. I told her I was going to call the police. I called the non-emergency line. I spoke to a woman who was patient and asked me to repeat the details twice. She said an officer would be in contact. I gave her Gerald Foss's name and his address on Birchwood and the description of the dark blue sedan. My shift that day was the longest 8 hours of my life. I stayed with Ruth Ann that night. I told her there was a situation I was sorting out, and she put sheets on the spare bed and made tea and did not push me for details, which is exactly why I have loved that woman for 14 years. 2 days later, an officer called me. His name was Patterson. He told me they had looked into Gerald Foss. What they found was not just a man sitting in a car. Gerald Foss had a history. 2 prior restraining orders, both filed by women, one in Morris County and one in Bergen. He had been careful. He had not crossed any lines that left marks. But he had been watching, and he had been getting closer, and the fact that he had tried my side gate was enough, combined with his history, to get a judge to sign off on a restraining order. They picked him up for a formal warning the following Tuesday. Officer Patterson told me I was lucky that someone had been paying attention. I thought about Owen on that bus, in his brown canvas jacket, hungry enough that a muffin from a stranger was worth accepting. I thought about how thin the line is between being seen and being invisible. Owen had no reason to get involved. He did not know me, not really. We were bus acquaintances. We shared muffins and small talk and quiet mornings and nothing else. But he paid attention. And he used what he saw. There is a moment in this story that I keep coming back to. It is not the restraining order, and it is not the phone call with the officer. It is the moment on the bus when Owen said, "I need you to listen before you react," because that sentence tells you everything about who he was. He was not dramatic about it. He was not traumatic about it. He was not trying to frighten me. He just needed me to hear what he had seen, and he was careful enough to say so before he said anything else. That kind of careful attention is rare. I found out, some weeks later, why Owen had been absent from the bus for almost 2 weeks. He had gotten a call from his son, a young man named Darius who lived in Atlanta and with whom Owen had not spoken in almost 3 years. Owen had driven down to see him. They had spent a week together. It was not easy, he told me. There were things that needed to be said that had been sitting unsaid for a long time, but they said them. He came back lighter than I had ever seen him. I do not know exactly what had passed between Owen and his son. That is his story, not mine. But I know that Owen came back to that bus route looking like someone who had set something down. And I know that the same week he had been in Atlanta, sitting in some quiet room with his son working through the weight of years, I had been going about my ordinary Thursday, unaware that Gerald Foss was standing at my side gate with his hand on the latch. We carry each other without knowing it. That is what I believe now. Owen started a new job in January, facilities maintenance for a school district in Union County. Different hours, different route. He stopped taking the 542 on Cedar Lane, and I stopped seeing him. I brought one muffin the first morning after I knew he was gone. Cranberry orange. I ate the whole thing, which I had not done in months. It was good. I had forgotten it was good. I still take the same bus. I still sit in the same section. I still watch the faces of the people who get on and settle into their seats and stare out the window at nothing. I wonder sometimes what they are carrying. I wonder who is paying attention to them. I think about Gerald Foss less than I expected to. The restraining order was renewed once. Officer Patterson told me that Foss had moved out of the area about 6 months after everything happened. I did not feel relief exactly. I felt something quieter than relief, like when a sound you have been straining to hear finally stops, and you realize you had been holding your shoulders up for a long time. Felicia visited in February. She stayed for 10 days, and we repainted the kitchen, which my husband and I had always meant to do and never got around to. The color is a soft yellow now. He would have liked it. She still asks me to move closer. I still say I will think about it. But here is what I know. I am not invisible. I was seen at the right time by the right person because of 65 cents worth of muffin and the simple decision to share it. That is almost funny. It is also the truest thing I can tell you. I did not know that being kind would save my life. I was not being kind with any expectation. I was just a woman on a bus with an extra muffin and a quiet morning and a little bit of room in my heart to hand something to someone who looked like he needed it. Be attentive to the people around you. You do not have to know someone's whole story to treat them like they matter. And sometimes the person you are being decent to is watching something that you cannot see. Sometimes they are paying attention in ways you will only understand later. I am 63 years old. I take the same bus every morning. I bring a muffin. And I am here to tell you, that is enough. That has always been enough. I have thought a lot about what actually saved me, And the honest answer is not something dramatic. It was not a police officer or a security system or a locked door. It was 65 cents, a cranberry orange muffin on a cold morning. The fact that I looked up, saw a man who was hungry, and decided to share what I had rather than eat it alone. That is it. That is the whole thing, when you strip it down. I think about cause and effect a lot now, not in any mystical sense, just in the plain practical sense that choices ripple outward in ways we cannot track in the moment. When I handed Owen that first muffin, I was not making a decision that would matter. I was just doing what felt human. But that small decision built something. It built enough trust that months later, when Owen saw something that frightened him, his first instinct was to protect me. He did not have to. He had no obligation. He was a man I had shared a bus route with, nothing more. But we had built something in those quiet mornings, and it held. That is what I mean when I say character is not built in the big moments. It is built in the ordinary ones, when there is no audience and no reward and no reason to be decent except that decency is available to you. Owen paid attention to my street not because he was looking for something to report. He was working a moving job, he had his own life to manage, but because he was the kind of man who noticed things, who stayed present. That is a form of intelligence that does not show up on any test. It is the intelligence of paying attention to the world around you and understanding that what you see might matter to someone else. And Felicia, my daughter, who I sometimes feel I have not given enough credit to, she did not panic and make things worse. She asked the right questions, she let me lead, and then she came and stayed for 10 days in February and helped me repaint a kitchen that had needed it for years. That is a kind of strength too, the strength to show up after the crisis, when the adrenaline is gone and what remains is just the ordinary work of being present for someone you love. What I want to say, and what I think this whole experience comes down to, is this. Resilience is not about being unafraid. I was afraid. I was afraid on that bus. I was afraid in Ruth Ann's spare bedroom that night. I was afraid in ways I am still sorting through. Resilience is deciding that fear does not get to be the last word. It is calling the non-emergency line even when your hands are shaking. It is staying in the house you built your life in, even when the house feels too quiet. It is eating a whole muffin by yourself on the first morning the seat across from you is empty and deciding that was okay. I did not know any of this when it was happening. I only know it now, on the other side of it, sitting in a yellow kitchen that my husband never got to see. Pay attention to the people around you. Be decent when it costs you nothing, and be decent when it costs you something. Stay present enough to notice when something is wrong. And when someone trusts you with what they have seen, listen before you react. That is the whole lesson. I did not learn it from a book. I learned it on a bus, at 5:30 in the morning, with a muffin in my hand.